Hello everyone and welcome to Byju's and welcome to another session on governance. Now in this video, we will be discussing everything about governance. We have so far seen various topics, some could say characteristics of governance, things like transparency, accountability, issues on corruption, etc. And now the time has come to consolidate all these aspects and delve deeper into the understanding of what do we mean when we use the word governance. We will discuss about the meaning of governance, what it means to the government, what impact it has on people, and we will also be looking at various ways in which governance is defined by different organizations, including how the Western countries have arrived at an idea of governance. So, how would you define governance? See, obviously, in short, you can say that it is a process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented. But there are various other ways to define governance. Firstly, how do we differentiate between government and governance? It can be summarized in a beautiful way to this definition that the body whose sole responsibility or authority is to make binding decisions by establishing laws. I repeat, the body whose sole responsibility or authority is to make binding decisions by establishing laws is government. Whereas governance is the way these rules, norms, and actions are structured, are sustained, are regulated, and held accountable. Then there is this confusion over differentiating management from governance. Governance determines what an organization does and what it should become in future, whereas management determines how all this is going to happen. How will an organization become something else in future? How will the growth take place? What will be the growth story like? Governance is all about determining what a particular organization is doing and what it should become in future. So governance answers what and management answers or determines how. That is why administration means setting goals and objectives, and then we have management which coordinates to achieve these goals, those objectives, and governance ensures that all the processes are compliant. Right? Now, let me ask you something. Our knowledge of, say, quantum physics has increased way more than what it used to be, say, 100 years back, right? And you know, as you tend to write and discuss more on a topic, after you conduct more research, after more intellectual application, after more studies, after more investigation, we have this belief that in general, we would be more knowledgeable on the topic. We would be more proficient on a topic. So we would have a clarity on the topic. But that's not the case with governance. The idea of governance per se is yet to be quantized. And as more and more is being written on the subject, the concept has become more and more ambiguous, more and more vague. So I would try to define governance through a triangulation model or a network model here for you. Something which is called a third-party governance. Something which is called the triangulation model of governance. Now, anybody who can provide public service is a part of governance. Governance is not just something that only a state does. If you are a corporate and if you are implementing the schemes of the government, you are a part of governance. If you as a group, a social group, is trying to conduct some social audit, some review of the expenditure done by the government for the people, or the corporates for the people, why should you not be a part of governance? So, this idea is what is called third-party governance, wherein the society is allowed to explore alternative problem-solving forum. And you know, what it does is, it unties governance from the apron strings of government. Earlier, only state was supposed to provide for governance, but now we are also incorporating the market. We are also incorporating the civil society. So a typical example would be the state. Now the state makes some programs, some welfare policies that it wants to implement. Whereas what it does is it will now outsource these programs, the implementation of these welfare policies to, let's say, some MNC, some corporate through a PPP. This outsourcing is done to a private body, and now this private body is given the task to implement the concerned government scheme. And once the particular body, the organization has implemented the scheme, it is left for the people to review something which is called the social audit. Then the review, the social audit, is done by the NGO or the civil society. So when I say social audit, I simply mean that you are estimating whether the state reported expenditure, whether the money that the state claims to have spent on the people for the betterment of the people on a certain scheme reflects the actual money spent on the ground or not. If the government documents say that a bridge has been constructed, was the bridge actually constructed or not? In this, we can also keep the government in check, right? Hold it accountable. So when the state makes some program, it outsources the implementation to some private organization, and the private organization will then implement it, and the people, the ones who are receiving, the beneficiaries, the people can obviously always conduct an audit, or the review can be done by an NGO or a civil society. It is this triad, the triangulation model, that is what is called third party governance. Why? Because now you have actually roped in other organizations as well. This is what is called third party governance, and this is a very popular idea. And in the current scenario, this is what is practically being used. We don't always find government everywhere. We find that a lot of activities of the government are being taken care of by private enterprises, which forms the crux of a public-private partnership. So, outsourcing is common, and when you add proper element of review done by people, some NGOs, some civil society representatives, you get the classic case of the third-party governance or the triangulation model of governance. Okay, now if I asked you at this point of time, can you please point out some of the core values, some of the features of governance? And believe you me, whatever definition you arrive at, whatever definition you think of, in whatever form you want to define governance, it will have certain features. Now, when I say certain features, the definition of governance will cover certain aspects. It will have those keywords, and every definition of governance will have these keywords. So what are these keywords? Let's try to jot them down together as features of governance. So what exactly are these features? Number one, first things first. People at the center. People-centric. Enhanced democracy. Greater decentralization. More responsibility and responsiveness. And greater transparency. All simple words. In fact, if you go through all these words, you will find that they are the core values of essence of democracy. So in short, the idea is that people are at the center of all the affairs. The government makes schemes for the amelioration, the betterment of the life of people, keeping in mind the people and the country. Then democracy must be enhanced, it must be improved. More democracy, and you have to give power to people. Decentralization of power, devolving power to the lower levels, right up to an individual. The devolution of powers, democratic decentralization, making people the masters of their own destiny. The government should be more accountable, or it has to be more responsible. There should be greater transparency. We have seen what accountability means, what responsibility and responsiveness mean, and we were studying the module on transparency and accountability where we encountered all these terms. So these are some basic features of governance. Now, understand the idea of governance through the prism of Western countries. What do Western countries believe? Western countries have a different approach. In 1989, World Bank had articulated in a report, a document of sorts on sub-Saharan Africa, where they came up with a very unique definition of governance. They said that governance is something which is an idea of a state taking a rollback, state taking a backseat, and that is what has been pioneered or championed by the World Bank. The market has to come in the front, and we call this the market ascendancy approach or the state rollback approach of governance. So, in this approach, they say that the exercise of political power to manage the country's resources efficiently is what is governance. I'll repeat, managing the resources of the country efficiently is what is governance. The moment you are able to manage the resources of the country efficiently, meaning judicious utilization of resources, the natural resources, the human resources of the country, is what is governance. Now, on the face of it, you will find that this definition is pretty decent. But let's also understand that the nature of political power. What kind of power are we talking about here? This nature of political power is of no concern to World Bank. All you have to do is manage the resources efficiently. So what exactly are we talking about? What kind of power is in question? Is it a dictatorship? Is it a democratic power? We do not know. And frankly, we should not be bothered if the World Bank is to be followed. And hence I said, the nature of political power is of no concern to World Bank. In short, what they mean is, let's do one thing. Let's give all the raw materials from Africa to all the MNCs, who can then use it efficiently and effectively. If governance is all about utilizing resources efficiently, then don't you think that this idea, this definition of governance is very narrow, is geared towards the idea of market? That is why the use of phrase market ascendancy or the state taking a rollback. Market comes forward, state takes a backseat. The moment the state devolves all the resources to the MNCs, now the MNCs can use it judiciously. Obviously, the MNCs are way more experienced. They can use these resources in a much refined fashion. They have a lot of experience in how to properly utilize resources, right? It will not result at least in the wastage of resources. But that's very strange. That is very narrow. And this definition was something which did not work in the favor of Eastern countries, especially our country. All those countries which follow some kind of welfare policies. So welfare states were not in tune with this definition. We'll see in the coming slides as to how. Firstly, World Bank went on to enunciate the features of governance. We have seen our definition. These are the features. First things first, accountability. Accountability is a great word. Obviously, everybody, all those in power should be held accountable. Towards us, the government ought to be accountable. But World Bank says accountability not to people, but to business in terms of stable policies, in terms of reduced deficits, so on and so forth, predictability of policies, etc. So accountability is not towards citizens, it is towards the business focusing on money. Secondly, transparency. Again, a great word, but then transparency with respect to the markets. See, basically, MNCs were tired of navigating this intricate maze of corruption and patronage in India. And sometimes, MNCs are so tired that they say, tell us who should we bribe, and we'll buy the person, bribe the authority, bribe the organization, and then the department, and move forward. Get our work done. Such is the situation with MNC sometimes. So, In that situation, transparency is with respect to markets, with respect to more stable policies, policies which are put out for everybody to see. Then, empowerment, yet another very, very big word. Now, when I say empowerment, empowerment not through some rights or legal entitlements. No, don't be confused. Empowerment through technology, through e-governance, empowerment through mobile governance, empowerment through smart city. This stuff, and again, I do ask you to think on it. According to World Bank, it just means this. Buy something from Amazon, Flipkart. Now it's online. You can very easily obtain things delivered, one-day delivery, same-day delivery, all such things, prime delivery, right at your doorsteps, cash on delivery. You don't even need to pay for the things up front. You can deny things, you can reject things, you can return things, exchange things. That's the ease, that's the empowerment of a person. But this is only for those people who have money and who have some digital literacy. This is why I said, in the context of India, this definition falls flat. It is excessively geared towards the idea of market. It focuses too much on markets and profits. Finally, in the definition, for the first time, they talked about citizens' participation. The word citizen was used for the first time in the definition. Imagine you're talking about the word governance and you are using everything but citizens. That should have been the core of a definition. The core of any definition of governance from the very onset. Anyway, they say citizens' participation. Great. Obviously. But if you feel it talks about some inclusiveness, no, it does not. As a citizen, how do you participate in the market? You participate in the market as a producer or a consumer. That is your participation in the market. Don't think of this being inclusivity of some kind or decentralization, devolution of powers, wherein you become the master of your own destiny. That's not the case here. The case is that you are a participant either as a producer or a consumer. So these were the features of governance as given to us by the World Bank. And even though these features may work appropriately in the Western countries, when it comes to India, these features will not work. And that is why let us also at the very same point discuss the issues with the World Bank's approach. Because according to them, it seems like there is no need for an elected government. Let's have a robotically elected government at the top, bringing home some Harvard ISB, IIM, MBA and making him the PM. And then he will know how to devolve resources to various MNCs who can use it for their own benefits. So what are the issues with the World Bank's approach? First things first, it replaces politics with management. And it creates democracy without politics. I mean, what is democracy? If there is no politics, if there is no ideology to chase, if there is no banking on the support of masses, if there is no vision and the variety of visions amongst our parties, that is what makes up for a thriving democracy, which is what is missing. So if you replace politics with management, if you create democracy without politics, at some level, you are creating a citizenship with no rights to people. I mean, people are just producers and consumers for you. What about what they want? That's never in question. And as I said, extra focus is on markets. That's there, but it also encourages soft authoritarianism. How? I'll explain that. See, if you are hungry, let's say, that is your individual problem. Please don't seek out or reach out to others. There is no concept of collective deprivation here. Whatever rights that exist are individual rights. There is no notion of collective rights in such a country. And why is this so? Let's say you form a collective organization to reach out to other people who are suffering from the same problem. You form a group, right? Now, what is the next step? You come out on the streets which involves or results in a mass movement, protests, strikes, and similar other techniques. These protests are in turn going to hamper business. And then if business is hampered, we'll have to put you down with a show of force. The state's coercive apparatus of, say, police will have to be used against you. And like a benign father, we will have to discipline you. This is what they mean when they say governance. That is why I said this approach also encourages soft authoritarianism. That is a very, very important factor here. So these are the issues primarily with World Bank's approach. Back in 2005, when Manmohan Singh's government was in power, Congress had won and was the single largest party. And they had joined hands with CPI to form the coalition government. It is then that these left parties, were constantly questioning Manmohan Singh's idea of this market approach. And they were trying to politicize development. Dr. Manmohan Singh basically said that please don't politicize development. We are trying hard to effectively utilize the resources in our country, and in this particular statement, he was actually echoing the statement of markets. And the left parties were absolutely right when they said that development needs to be politicized. If we do not politicize development, what is left to be politicized? If you don't talk about a vision and ideology for the people of this country, where people are made participants in governance, and they are the ones who should have the real power. And if we don't talk about that, what else? What else is left to be talked about? And I'll tell you something. Development is not just some technological experience. No, it's not. It is a socio-cultural experience, and therefore the developmental trajectory, the path and goals have to be tailor-made to the country or the society in which they are being implemented. Extremely important. So it is not just use of technology. No, that is not development. It is a socio-cultural experience. People have to be made a part, and every developmental policy has to suit the needs of the people of the country, people of the area. Now, let us also discuss at this point and understand what exactly are the problems with this market approach. First things first, don't you think that markets only respond to consumers? They don't respond to every citizen. If you have the capacity to purchase, if you are a consumer, if you are a person who can afford that particular product, for example, every company responds to its own consumer base. Let's take Apple, for instance. What features people want? If they don't want too much of change, if they don't want the limitless potential of modifying the system to suit your needs like an Android device, is what has to be provided. Basically, Apple knows what people want, and they are giving them what they want. They want the logo. When they click their mirror selfies, they want the logo to be visible, right? And you give them the logos. Apple will never remove the logos. How many mobile phones do you see featuring such prominent logos at the back? So as I said, market will respond to consumers. People who are the ones who have the paying capacity. People who are the ones who can afford it. But government, the state, it has to respond to every citizen regardless of his or her capacity to pay. The state must perform for everyone. You are rich, we'll perform for you. You are poor, we have an added responsibility towards fulfilling your needs. So we are going to perform for you whatever situation comes. Whatever may be the end result, state performs for everyone. They are not bothered about your capacity to pay. Secondly, markets are driven by profit motive only. There are a number of areas where the market is not willing to perform. For example, markets only want to open, say a private company or private bank wants to only open branches in urban areas. And hence we have to make regulations forcing them to open branches in rural areas. A new private sector bank is required to open a minimum of 25% of its total branches in rural areas or semi-urban areas as a condition of the license. That's mentioned under the section 22 of the Banking Regulations Act 1949. Then this idea of crony capitalism. Now what is crony capitalism? Crony capitalism simply means profit. Profit due to nexus between business and political class. This is what is crony capitalism. It is a very unique economic system in which businesses thrive not as a result of free enterprise, but rather as a return on the money amassed through collusion between a business class and the political class. People say there is perfect competition. There is nothing called perfect competition. Let's be real. In life, there is no perfect competition. Some people will always have an added advantage at any given point of time. For example, you have an advantage in the sense that you are able to purchase this course, and then there are maybe hundreds of people, thousands of people, lakhs of people who can't even afford purchasing such a course. They are facing their own challenges of trying to mug up everything, learning things from the scratch. You have some advantage. Maybe somebody else has a bigger advantage. Maybe people who do not even need to fight, who do not even need to face any competition amongst lakhs of people to compete. The sons and daughters of Ambanis and Birlas and Tatas, their struggles may be limited to the Wi-Fi speed less than 1 Gbps today, or maybe Pixel 6 not coming to India. That could be their concern. Do you remember how Ananya Pandey spoke about her own struggles? So in short, there is nothing called perfect competition. And I will show you an example of how crony capitalism works. Let's say there are two companies, A and B. Both these companies manufacture biscuits. Now the government comes up with a scheme and they say that from now onwards, we will always provide for biscuits to every kid in the midday meal scheme. And they ask companies to bid for making biscuits and supplying it to the government. All those companies which are willing, please apply. Now when you come in, apply for the tender. There are these two companies. One company sells biscuits, say worth 10 rupees a packet. The other one sells, let's say, 12 rupees a packet. Now obviously, if the quality is almost the same, the government will choose the company A, which is selling it for rupees 10 a packet. What if the company B tries to bribe the concerned minister or the bureaucrat, people like you? The owner approaches you as a secretary or a joint secretary, additional secretary, and says, "Sir, here is a small gift for you, a 15-day, 16-night trip to Canada. Can you please give this contract to me, sir? Can you give this tender to me?" And it is this unholy nexus, unholy link between you and the corporate, between ministers and the corporates, that particular company. This is what is crony capitalism. How is this fair? It's unfair. It's not just unfair, it's also a wasteful expenditure. The politicians would be wasting the precious resources of the country. And that is why crony capitalism is defined as a profit generated due to nexus between businessmen and the political class. This is cronism or crony capitalism for you. Now a question for you. Have markets failed in the past? Be it the Great Depression of 1920s or the subprime crisis of 2008. And if the market fails, does it not require a very, very efficient, a very effective state to respond to the consequences, or else there will be utter chaos? The entire idea of welfare politics stems from the inability of the market to take care of the needs of everybody. And apart from it, not everything can be outsourced. Things like law and order, police functions, foreign policy, there are various aspects which cannot be given to private parties. External affairs, such decisions cannot be given to private parties. And there are all these other aspects, issues like rights, social evils like child marriage, gender inequality, patriarchy in society, communalism, among other things. Market has no interest in these issues. State is the one which is required to take care of all these social issues, eradicate these social evils. Market will take care of these issues only if they are forced to do so. So all these are genuine problems of the market approach. Now, to conclude this argument, let us also try to understand something which is of extreme importance. Now, what is the principal condition for the market to succeed? Any promissory note, any check, any demand draft, any agreement, any lease, any contract, any such document must be quickly and effectively enforced. If two parties sign a contract in this market and one party fails to abide by the terms and conditions of the contract, don't we need a strong and effective state to enforce the regulations? Don't we need a strong state to punish the erring party? So, the principal condition for the market to succeed is the sanctity, the purity of contract being ensured, being maintained. So eventually, a successful market is also premised, is also based on an effective and efficient state, which will ensure the sanctity of contract being maintained. Let me tell you something. This entire problem with most developing countries, including India, is not decentering the state, not replacing the state with markets. No. It is never replacing the state with markets. That is not the problem. The problem is to replace the existing feudal, bureaucratic, and the bourgeois state with a genuine democracy. The moment you replace this kind of feudal, this kind of bureaucratic state with a genuine democracy, the problem is solved. This is the real catch. The moment we are able to achieve this, you will not need to replace the state with market, because now the state will also be equally efficient, if not more. Plus, the state will have an added advantage of being democratically elected. If it will have an advantage of being all-inclusive, ensuring that powers are devolved right at the grassroots. So these are the problems of the market.